What if I told you that the more you give your time, the less people appreciate it? That your availability might be the very reason people take you for granted. Take a second to think about it. Why do people go crazy over rare sneakers but ignore the ones they can buy anytime? Why does a sold out concert feel more exciting than one with empty seats? And why do people respect those who set boundaries but walk over all those who say yes too easily? It's because when something is too accessible, it loses its perceived value, and the same applies to you. Believe it or not, there's a science to people wanting what they can't have. Have you ever noticed that when something is hard to get, people want it more? Think about it. The last iPhone launch. Every year Apple limits supply and people rush to get one. A luxury car. The rarer the model, the higher the price. The exclusive VIP list. The fewer people allowed in, the more everyone wants access. This is called the scarcity principle, and it was studied by a psychologist named Robert Cialdini. He found that when people believe something is rare or hard to get, they automatically see it as more valuable. The same concept applies to your life. When you're always available, people assume you'll always be there. They don't need to earn your time because you give it away so freely. Over time, they start to take you for granted, not out of malice or even bad intention, but simply because you've taught them that you're always an option. So what's the solution? Simple. Make your time feel more exclusive. Now, why is it that more access equals less appreciation? Let's talk about it for a second. The first bite of your favorite meal always tastes incredible. The second, it's still great, but by the 10th bite, you're not as excited anymore. That's called the law of diminishing returns. The more we get of something, the less we value it. And this applies to people too. Imagine you text someone all day, every day. At first, they love the attention, but over time, it becomes normal, expected, and then eventually they don't appreciate it anymore. Now imagine the opposite. You're someone who isn't always reachable. You reply when you can. You're selective about who gets your time. And when you do engage, you bring energy and purpose. What happens then? People start to respect your time more. They pay attention when you're around. And most importantly, they cherish their interactions with you instead of taking them for granted. The takeaway is stop over delivering your presence. A lot of people fall into the nice person trap. And it's part of why being too available makes them less respected. Let me be very, very clear though. Being kind is a strength, but being overly accessible without boundaries, that's a weakness. For example, the boss who answers every call immediately isn't seen as a leader. He's seen as someone without authority. The friend who drops everything at a moment's notice isn't always admired. She's taken for granted. The partner who is always available isn't valued as much as the one who has their own life and passions. When you're too available, people unconsciously assume your time isn't that valuable. After all, if it were, you wouldn't give it away so easily. So here's the shift. Be kind, but be selective. Be generous, but with boundaries. Now there's another social element to this, which is people will judge your value based on how others treat you. If you ever notice that when someone is highly sought after, people assume they must be important. It's social proof. The idea that we determine value based on how others perceive something. If a restaurant has a line out the door, we assume the food must be amazing. If a person is hard to get a hold of, we assume they must be busy and important. If a product is sold out, we assume it must be high quality. Now think about your own life. If you're always the one texting first, always the one offering help, always the one initiating plans, what message does that send? What it says is, I have nothing better to do. Now, obviously that's not true, but that's how people unconsciously interpret over accessibility. Instead, if you space out your responses, make people wait a little bit, say I'd love to, but I'm busy, how about next week? People start seeing you differently. They assume your time is valuable because you treat it that way. This even applies in relationships and can be the reason why distance creates desire. You ever wonder why the honeymoon phase of a relationship is so exciting? It's because in the beginning, there's a sense of mystery. You don't know everything about the other person yet. But as time goes on, if you become too available, too predictable, too always there-ish, the excitement fades. Mystery is one of the most attractive traits a person can have. And when you remove all sense of mystery by being constantly present, you also remove intrigue. Give people the chance to miss you. It's one of the simplest but most powerful ways to increase your value. Alright, so how do you regain your value? How do you stop being too accessible without seeming rude or distant? Step 1. Set boundaries without apologizing. Stop replying instantly. Stop saying yes to everything. Stop being available 24/7 just because you feel like you should. Your time is precious. Protect it. Number 2, create a sense of exclusivity. Space out your availability. Instead of always initiating, let others come to you. Make your presence feel intentional, not automatic. Number 3, keep some mystery. You don't have to share everything. Let people wonder what you're up to. Surprise people instead of being predictable. Number 4, prioritize yourself first. Focus on your goals, your growth, and your well-being. When you start investing in yourself, others naturally start valuing you more. I'll leave you with this before I go. Less access equals more value. The truth is, you teach people how to treat you. If you're always available, they assume you always will be. But if you make them work for your time, they value it so much more. Scarcity creates value, boundaries create respect, and exclusivity creates demand. So here's the challenge I'll leave you with. Stop giving unlimited access, make people earn your time, and watch how your value skyrockets. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for all the love you guys have been showing. If you liked the video, leave a comment or two, share it to someone who needs to hear it. But in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Be blessed, stay humble, and keep going.